if I had to boil down a successful launch of really anything, it would be...
Today we're sitting down with Jay Yang, the social media strategist for Alex Hormozi and acquisition.com, and one of the minds behind that book launch you may have heard of. I heard they sold a few books and broke a few records.
For those of you who are curious what my next book is, it's already done.
Reports say the book launch generated more than $75 million in day one sales and moved over 1 million copies.
We treat content like a professional. Like if you're an NBA player, what do? They track metrics. They track the number of shots you take, the number of shots you make.
Obviously, you heard about the book launch, you know what they achieved, but this is the strategy behind it, the approach to content and business that led to that kind of success being possible in the first place.
Alex has been working on the book for over 2 years. So I think that broke my frame on like playing in long games, you know? Like he's been working on these 3-book series for the past 6 years. And so most people operate in days, he operates in decades.
Jay shares a ton of content advice directly from acquisition.com and Alex Hormozi, and as well as the approach to life and business that makes all of these things possible. Jay is only 19 years old, but he is incredibly wise for someone his age, and he's also a content genius. Throughout the whole episode, he drops a ton of awesome wisdom, but the most impressive thing is how simple and obvious everything he says sounds. That's only possible if you're truly an expert at what you're talking about, and Jay is absolutely an expert when it comes to content, and he's used the skills that he's acquired to open doors for himself that many people dream of, and he's opened at 19. So let's get right into it and hear from Jay. All right, we're going right now. Jay, how are you, man?
Doing awesome, Ben. Appreciate you having me on.
Of course, man. Of course. It's been a pretty slow few months for you, man. I don't know if I think you should definitely be doing some more stuff. So let's go through it all, man. I want to start with your story. I get to know you a lot more, and we'll talk about Alex later. But I want to know more about you. So tell me your whole spiel. Where'd you start? Because you're still pretty damn young, man. How old are you to start with?
I'm 19.
You're 19. Okay, that's fucking awesome, man. Okay, so you're 19. You dropped out of college. Can you give me that whole story?
Yeah. I'll do a quick backstory because I know
Yeah,
we
please.
don't need to go super deep. But I started creating content 5 years ago, and I've been obsessed with this topic of what does it take to inspire someone? Like, how do you actually change behavior? And so that's the question that I've been obsessed with for the past 5 years, mainly through written word. I just like the challenge of like you don't have any facial expressions or nonverbal gestures. It's just straight up text on white background. How do you influence and change someone's behavior? And that's led me to do some pretty interesting things, work with some interesting people using that skill. And so I dropped out of college 4 months ago to work full time with acquisition.com. And before that, worked with a few other people. So it's been quite a ride.
So what was it in particular that drew you to shifting behavior, and why written word? Is that because it was the most difficult way of doing it that you found?
I first became interested in it because I saw how much of a difference it made in my life.
Okay.
Before the 5 years, I was just an average kid, playing video games 5 hours a day. But I started listening to some motivational videos, some motivational speakers, and I felt the difference it made in my approach to life, and it fundamentally changed the trajectory of my life. And so I thought, what better way than to figure out how I can do the same to impact and inspire as many people as possible.
Yeah, no, and I had the same sort of experience. I wasn't as early on the game as you were, so that's awesome to see that you found that so quickly. But first, what game were you playing back when you were playing video games?
Dude, I was an iPad kid, so I was playing
Like mobile
Minecraft.
games?
Yeah, there was another game, probably a niche game that not many people know. It was called Mumu.io.
Okay,
Um,
I've never heard of it.
yeah, it was those kind of games.
So how do you go from playing Minecraft and Mumu to finding this like motivational stuff? Like, how does that transition take place?
Yeah, honestly, it took place because one day I had a realization. I was like, I should probably be doing something better with my life. And so
Okay. You're
that's
pretty young
kind
to
of when I
have that
started to,
realization, though, man. That's pretty young. You're like, what do you mean do something with your life? You would have been what, 14?
yeah, 14, 15. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm assuming there's got to be some connection to your household and your parents, because I saw on your Twitter that you wrote them a was it a memo before you dropped out? What was it specifically you created for them before you dropped out of school?
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is skipping to about 5, 6 months ago. I wrote a memo to them explaining why I should drop out of college and what the second order consequences, the perceived second order consequences, obviously you'll never know, but the variables that were in play, to show them that it was a good decision for the goals I had out of my life. And so, yeah,
How'd they take that?
they took it really well. Better than I thought. I think, if another kid in college is watching this and you're like, oh, I should just write a memo and my parents will love it. It's like I have been doing things since a freshman year in high school, and so they've always known that I've had slightly different goals and behaviors than most other college kids. So it's a track record of proof. This wasn't the first conversation I had with them about uh, taking a different form of education. Um, and so that's the recommendation I'd say is like it's not as simple as just making a sudden announcement and your parents just have to get over it. Like it's been a slow trickle.
That's what I think the biggest misconception is for people who've never done something on their own is that they think it's just like a switch that gets flipped and then like they're different, right? I think it's the small consistent actions that you do over and over again. And I know Hormozi has a similar quote to that where like confidence isn't built from yelling affirmations in the mirror, it's from doing things that give you undeniable proof of that you can do the thing. I'm butchering the quote, but you get what I mean. So what were those small things, what were those things that you were doing when you were a freshman in high school? What were the first hustles?
Yeah, the first thing I started was a music promotion YouTube channel.
Okay.
And so I would promote underground artist songs to help them get exposure on YouTube, help them grow. I did that all summer before freshman year of high school. And, page didn't really go anywhere, but it was my introduction to content creation because even though I didn't get a ton of views, I did see like, oh, I can get 100 views or 200 views. That's 200 people from my bedroom. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, that's powerful. So from there, I continued on what I like to call my portfolio failures. So the music promotion YouTube channel, I started Instagram motivational theme pages. I even tried to start a clothing brand. Like I started a newsletter. I did all these things like, throwing stuff at the wall, trying to see what sticks. And so that was the first part of my career.
Dude, that's amazing. I have an incredibly similar story and path where I started a YouTube channel after I had started Instagram theme pages. I was lucky where when I started on Instagram, I made a whole agency around theme pages because it was so easy to grow back in like
Mm-hmm.
2014. It was a joke. And also they had all these bots that you could use where Instagram didn't crack down on them. So we could spin up accounts and grow them incredibly quickly. And then I also started a YouTube channel. I originally started my channel doing fitness vlogs and
Okay.
no
Yeah,
one
yeah.
no one watched those. And then through doing that, just like you, I learned, okay, this is how people like to watch things. This is how they decide what to give their time to. And I think that's the most important thing for anyone listening to this, that to underline what Jay just said there, is that it's people on the other side of the screen. And when you realize that, it really can make you assign more importance to each thing that you're doing, each bit of content you're creating. When you think about the person who will eventually be watching it, naturally you're going to come to it providing a lot more value because you realize it's an exchange. I think when most people step into content creation, they do so very selfishly. They're like, what can this give me? And they don't realize it's an exchange platform. You got to give equitable exchange to get what you want back. And obviously you learn that through these pages. So for the motivational pages, were those successful or how did those go?
I had one that took off and then another that did decently, but for the most part, it wasn't anything crazy that I could build a business off of.
Okay. And how were you monetizing those? Just shout outs and stuff?
Yeah, shout outs and then I sold it at the end.
Nice. Okay, cool. And then what's the evolution past that? Did you start making your own kind of content?
Yeah, I got on Twitter, I got on Instagram for my personal brand. I started that newsletter where I just shared what I was doing, what I was learning. Um, and slowly I got to understand like, okay, if I write a certain way, I get more people interested. So let's write in a way that is outward focused. Like, how do I capture attention? And then I started learning about copywriting. I was like, oh, so copywriting is just the process of taking information from one brain and getting it to another. Like, how can we do more of that? How can we be really good at that? And so I got obsessed with copywriting, read all the books, watched YouTube videos, took courses, and like that became my life for probably a good 2.5 years. I mean, I'm still really obsessed with copywriting, but I was I would do, and this is a great exercise for anyone interested in learning how to write online. Um, it's called copy work. So what you do is you read something you really like, and then you hand write it out, word for word, letter for letter. And what happens is your mind subconsciously kind of picks up on the rhythm, the tone, the the musicality of writing. And so I did that every single day for 2 months. That changed everything.
That those kind of reps, they really do change things. And why copywriting is so important. I saw the same thing that you did when I was first creating content. That's why I shifted my agency primarily to YouTube, because I saw that was where copywriting had the highest degree of leverage because of the click part, right? And kind of like
Yeah.
Twitter as well, where it's the written matters so much. There's not the visual things until they click, right? And so I just thought that was quite profound. And what a lot of people get wrong, again, with social is that it's game of tiny percentage points. And so people always think that they can write a title just as well as I can. And I'm like, okay, sure, go for it. But they don't realize these are big data machines. The tiniest bit of difference means you're going to get almost all of the results because they're a for-profit machine, right? And so a lot of people forget about this. It's like Google or Twitter or whatever, they're a for-profit business. And so if they think that your post is even 0.1% better, they're going to show almost everyone your post because that's a better bet. Right. And so when you start thinking about that, you start thinking, okay, wow, these tiny little words and the order in which I put them in, they really, really matter. What was the like light bulb moment for you where you feel like it clicked and you started writing content that actually captured attention?
I don't think there was a one light bulb moment where I'm like, now I'm a fundamentally different person. I think it was
Okay.
more over time, reps after reps, seeing other people's things and analyzing them, deconstructing them, reverse engineering them, and just over time picking up on more things.
How often were you posting on Twitter?
Oh, when I started, 10, 20 times a day. Yeah, it
Wow,
was,
damn, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I mean,
And
I
so,
knew that volume negates luck, as Hormozi says, and I was like, I'm gonna get really good at this. So yeah.
damn. Okay, so what would be your tips for people? If you, I know this is such a hard thing to do, but if you could give like 5 to 10 tips for someone who is trying to become a better online copywriter, do you have any sort of frameworks or tips that you'd give?
Okay, so if we're starting from zero, I would say follow the three C's, which is consume, collect, create. So step one, if you want to get really good at, let's say, Twitter or X, um, you have to consume Twitter and X content. Like it's just fundamentally you have to understand and absorb the world around you. So get on X, scroll, pay attention to what captures your attention. So why did this tweet stop my attention? Was it the sentence? Was it the hook? Was it the way it's structured? Was it maybe the profile picture? Just like study everything. Collect all of those tweets that stood out to you and then analyze the patterns between them. So, oh, these two posts stood out to me and they have the same hook. Interesting. Let's pay attention to that. And then step three is create. Now that you have these patterns, how can you copy and create that into your content? Maybe I use same hook, different topic, different hook, same topic, right? It becomes a game of remixing, and you start to pattern match from there. So that's step one. Step two, I would say, is I would say it's punch, slide, linger. Every piece of content, whether it's as short as a tweet or as long as a YouTube video, has those three fundamental things. Is you need to punch the reader in the face, capture their attention, stop the scroll, and then step two is slide. You want each sentence, word, or video to kind of be like a slippery slide. People just stay engaged throughout that, and you can open loops, rehook, all those things. And then step three is linger. You want what you say in the video or in the tweet to occupy mental real estate in the viewer's minds. And so if you can do those three things, I would say you have a pretty good piece of content that people want to keep continuing to consume from you.
Totally. Yeah, the first one that you shared there, every person that I've ever met who's good at content, they learned that way. And it's everyone who isn't good at content yet, they always think like that's such a waste of time. There aren't patterns. And you're only saying that because you haven't consumed enough to realize that. It's like information can only hit you to the level in which you're at, right? Otherwise, it goes over your head or it doesn't seem very significant until you've put in the reps. I also think there's a big thing in terms of investing the time to associate the importance to the nuance and to the small details and how much that actually moves the needle, because you will always find these patterns. And once you learn how to spot the patterns, then you realize how many more there are. And it can just open up the floodgates and you start finding little things that work all the time. And then you can even start to develop your own ideas from a better place because you actually know, okay, I'm stacking upon things I know work, the fundamentals, and then this is highly likely to work. And I'm sure you have it working with Hormozi or yourself. When an idea comes to you, because of your layered knowledge, you know before you make it, it's going to work. And that's an incredibly freeing feeling. And you really can't just jump there. You have to put in the reps and put in the time, which obviously you did. When you were making your own content on IG, let's say, what were you talking about? Just your day-to-day growth and what you were learning? Share me through that stuff.
The first evolution of the page was inspirational quotes. So, I mean, my
Okay.
very first post was, it's a great day to have a great day, or something like today's a beautiful day, like something super cliche.
It's a great place to
Um,
start, though.
yeah. The page evolved. It was called Project 50. It's kind of like . Hard, but
Yeah.
for wusses. So I did Project 50. I did visual designs. I started doing motivational stuff again. I started posting about copywriting as I was learning it. Uh, then started talking about online business as I was learning it. And then now I talk about, again, inspirational, motivational stuff for people getting into self-improvement. So it's definitely been an evolution.
Real quickly, if you're enjoying the episode, please consider subscribing. Each week, I bring on amazing people to help give you the tools and resources to thrive in a world that no one prepared you for. We cover all the topics shaping our life, like social media, AI, crypto, and go directly to the source to help you navigate your life and build whatever life it is that you want. And the best way that I can attract the people that you want to hear and ask the questions that you want asked is if this show grows. And the best way you can help me do that is by clicking the subscribe button, which should be right down there. It's completely free to you and it would mean the world to me. So thank you in advance for doing so. Let's get back to the episode. That's so awesome. And I think a lot of people don't start social because they feel like they don't have the one thing to talk about. But your experience is the whole is the whole blueprint. You talk about enough things until you have things to talk about, right? And that I took the exact same approach as a lot of people. They want to be a sniper when they've never shot a gun before. It's like you need to take the shotgun approach, figure out things, learn different things. I did the same thing with my YouTube channel. I talked about everything under the sun that I vaguely knew about until something stuck. And then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
clearly the people are responding when I talk about these things. I'm going to do a lot more of it. So when you're doing all this stuff, you're obviously proving that you're really entrepreneurial. You're learning a shitload. Why even go to school in the first place? Like, why did you decide to go to college?
Yeah. There was a few variables. I would say number one, I had three options coming out of high school. So I was working with Noah Kagan at the time. I was working part-time at a startup at the time, and I also had college. So it was like those three options.
Okay.
The startup offered me a full-time role. Noah wanted me to work full-time, and I also had college. So I was juggling three different things and like trying to determine which path was the right path. And so there was a lot of sleepless nights debating
Totally.
about that, which, obviously good problem to have. Let's yeah. So I decided to go to college for two reasons. Number one, it's you can't knock it until you try it. And so I'd say I'd rather have gone and realized it wasn't for me or realize it was for me than have never gone at all and always wondered what if I did or what if I didn't. Um, so that was number one, just like from my own mental headspace. Number two, I think a lot of people talk about skipping college because they want to get ahead. And my only pushback would be get ahead to what? I think so many of us over index on financial success or career success at the expense of other areas of our life. And I realized even if I skipped college and continued to work, I would still have to wait for everyone to catch up in a sense. So that's why I decided to go to college. I wanted to experience it, wanted to meet other people my age. And I definitely don't regret going at all.
This- I have so many different ways I want to take this because I keep reminding myself in my brain that you're 19, and it's almost like hard to believe that you think and operate like that. Is I know you're listening to this motivational stuff and all of those things, but it's one thing to listen to motivational stuff because I've even employed people that are around your age and they consume that stuff, but they can't think for themselves. If that makes sense, like how did you develop the confidence in yourself to fully say like this is not only what I'm going to do, here's why I'm doing it? I find that's one of the things that young people especially struggle with the most.
I mean, I talk about it in my book, which is having a North Star. I think so many people work hard but on the wrong things because they don't know what they're aiming for. And so for every young person I talk to, I try and like help them get really clear on like what's the goal here? Like what are you optimizing for? Because once you know what you're going for, you can then reverse engineer the steps to get there, and then it just becomes more of like a math and accountability game more than anything else. Um, and so
Man, it's insane.
that's been my entire past 5 years is like, what's the goal? Like, what's the intention here? How can I be intentional about like what gets me closer to that goal? So
It becomes so clear when you do figure that out. It's just so many people, they don't even ask that question, and they think that, I don't know if it's no answer will be enough, or it's like a clever way of procrastination essentially, where you don't outline the goal, so that way maybe it's a way of guaranteeing you don't fail, because if you never set a destination you can't not arrive because you didn't set a path. So I think that that's part of it, but kudos to you. It's amazing for setting that and having the balls to actually go and do it, because that's 95% of the game. It's just figuring out where do I want to go, because the steps, especially with social media and AI, the information's there. You just have to figure out where you want to go to outline the path. So you said you were, before you went into college, you were working with Noah Kagan and the startup. What were you doing for Noah, and what was the startup?
yeah, I started working with Noah my junior year of high school, and it started really small. I was doing Instagram captions for him, and I would like text it to him like, "Hey, is this approved?" And so like little stuff like that. Eventually, the role grew, and I helped him launch his book Million Dollar Weekend,
I
and
bought
that
that
went
book.
really
It's
well.
somewhere. It's somewhere back there.
Awesome,
Yeah.
dude, love it. Ask now, not how, right?
Yes, that's it, man. And then
Um,
for the startup, what were you doing there?
for the startup, it was called Startup Archive. It
Okay.
was like a how would I describe it? We were curating the world's greatest founders' advice. And
Mm.
so one of my tasks was to watch these 3 hour lectures of like Paul Graham, Sam Altman, like Elon Musk, Balaji, like all these guys, and then note down anything that we could turn into short form clips and then clip those and then post them on social. So I was in charge of the Instagram, Twitter.
Amazing. And obviously that's where you developed your content specific knowledge, which I want to get into in a little bit, but I still want to grasp more of the overall story so everyone understands the how you got to the what. So for Noah, obviously you're working at two pretty high profile things at such a young age. How did you get in connection with these people?
Two things. I would say number one, do the work up front. So for a lot of these roles, um, instead of asking, how can I help or I'll work for free, I did the work up front. I said, I created a pitch deck for Noah. It was 19 slides. Here's your social media. Here's another business person's social media. Like, this is what you could be doing better. Here's where you're at. Here's where you could be. Like, you're doing this on this platform. Great. You're not doing this on this platform. Here's what we could do about it. And then on top of that, I created 9 pieces of ready to be published content for free. And I said, all you have to do is press post. And I said, if you like it, like, let's work together. If not, no harm, no foul. And what that did is it showed him two things. Number one, that I could do the job. And number two, that I really, really wanted it, because not many people would do that work up front. And so that's the fastest way to show somebody your hunger and also your competence.
Totally, man. I couldn't agree more. And there's like this box around people who feel like they're not where they want to go, and they don't realize that it's effort and output away from almost always happening. Whenever people reach out to me that want to work with us or anything, if they show that, it's almost impossible to say no, because but that's where people go wrong. It's a lot of people, they heard Gary Vee say, "Oh, like offer to work for free," and so they'll just send a lot of messages saying, "I'm offering to work for free." If you're trying to work for someone who is genuinely really valuable and hard to be around, they don't have the time to just make up a job for you. Like, you have to actually figure out what that job is and then go show the competence in that, just like you did, obviously. And if you're listening to this right now, there's two people here saying the exact same thing, and it's so true. Anybody who listens to this who wants something, if you just go do what Jay did, the person's gonna have no choice then to reply. Even if it's not the first person, you may have to do this like 5 or 10 times, but you will get it. Like, it will eventually happen if you get good. And the more that you do this, the better that you're gonna get at it too. So obviously, did that work the first time? Was it the first person that you did it with?
No, that was the second time. I before
Okay,
that, my sophomore year of high school, I interned at Beehive, the newsletter
nice.
platform,
Yeah, yeah,
and I did the same approach. I cold emailed Tyler, the CEO,
yep.
and I sent him, I think it was like a 7 or 9 slide pitch deck. Me and my pitch decks, right? But I sent him a pitch deck with, here are 3 projects I could do for you. Here's why they would do well, and yeah, here's
That's
how I do it. And yeah,
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, it really, when you show you know what you're doing, you're also telling the person that you're going to be of value. It's not going to be a hindrance. It's not going to slow them down. And people who want to move, they want to move quickly. And so I know that I've not hired people because I believe they could have done the job, but I didn't think the time in teaching them was worth it. Right. And so it's gonna, you really got to show that you're something different. And if you want to get a job, especially as people are complaining that there's fewer and fewer opportunities out there, I would argue that like the floor is maybe higher than it was before, but it's never been easier to get up above the floor if you are just willing to do the work, right? So there's a lot of people out there that are complaining. Like people even in my own life that are in fields that are getting more difficult by the day due to automation and AI. And every time that they're complaining about a job, they've not done this stuff. Like I've never met someone who's looking for an opportunity who's done that. Like literally never. Like no one. So if you're listening to this and you're struggling to get the job you want, do the shit that Jay was doing. So you learned that stuff working with Noah. You're really good at pitch decks. Take me to the process towards working with acquisition.com.
yeah. I mean, before we do that, I just want to double click onto this because I think it's super
Yeah,
important
go for
for
it, man.
those who want an opportunity. There's kind of two lenses that I would take this. Number one, a great question to ask yourself is, how can I make this a no-brainer for the other person? Because what a lot of times happens is like if you say I'll work for you for free, it puts the burden on them to figure out who you are and how you can help. So always ask yourself, how can I make this a no-brainer? The second lens I'd say is the tag method, and this was coined by Charlie Hohen, who was Tim Ferriss's director of special projects. Um, Step one is target. Who do you want to reach out to? Um, I would say two things about that. Number one, pick someone who's 1 to 2 steps ahead of you, not someone who's like Elon or Beyonce and they have people full time whose full time jobs are to say no to people. Like pick someone who can directly help you with your journey. I'd also say because that's the case, they're more able to help you because they remember what it's like to be where you're at, right? Elon
Great
doesn't remember
point.
what it's like to be starting from zero, but someone who's 1 to 2 steps ahead of you probably is. Within that, I would also say when you pick your target, also identify what you want out of this role or with this person, right? Pick your goal. What's your intention here? Step two is do the audit. And so you could make a pitch deck or a Google Slides presentation. You could create a website mock-up. You could record or edit a video for somebody. Do the audit and do your homework and research on that person. What's their goals? What do they want? And how can you align your interests with their interests? Step three is gift. Give it away for free. Um, like don't ask for money. Don't edit a video and say, hey, can I send it for you? Just a $60 test project. It's like, just give it away for free. Worst case, you built your skill. Best case, you'll work with them. And so those are the two lenses I recommend to people when they want to work with
100%, man.
somebody.
Yeah, it's crazy how many doors that can open. And I think to get there, you've got to think more about other people. And the more that you start thinking about other people, the more things will come to you and the more doors get opened. And one thing I've noticed a lot whenever I speak to people is that empathy seems to be at an all-time low. And so if you can develop the skill of getting into the mind of someone else and even doing the thinking for them, I always run through the exercise in my head. If I ever want something from someone professionally, whatever, I think about, okay, so what would get in the way of them giving me that thing? I do the thinking before it's even been done. And then I stop that from happening. And that literally is the ultimate cheat code in life is when you can think for other people. And then you think about, okay, well, what would they probably say? Okay, they might have this constraint, and they'll say, okay, oh no, don't worry, I've already thought of that. Because that also shows that you really have gotten into their brain. And
Yeah.
if I know that people can understand my problems, it's just like social media. I think Hormozi might have even said this, that the winner is the person who can ever illustrate that they understand the person's problems the best. Again, I'm probably butchering the specific language, but if you can illustrate that one-to-one, it's going to work. And if you can illustrate that in content, it's going to work every single time. So I'm glad that you stopped me and underlined that. That's huge. So then that's how you got the original opportunities. And then the acquisition.com opportunity was what made you ultimately drop out of school. What was that role and how did you apply to that and how'd you get it?
Yeah, so I joined acquisition.com through a referral, so a friend of a friend. And the way I would explain this to somebody is the 4 types of luck. So luck number one is blind luck. These are things that you can't control, where you're born, who your parents are, your physical attributes. That's like outside of your control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the second type of luck is luck from motion, luck from hustle. you go out there, you hustle, you make things happen, you bump particles into each other, um, and stuff starts to happen. That would be an example, like reaching out to Noah, reaching out to Beehive. That would be an example of luck from motion, going out and making it happen through just effort and hustle.
It's beg you to subscribe Ben again back. I don't want to come back, but you didn't click the subscribe button, so here I am again. The more this show grows, the less I have to do this stuff, so please help your boy out. Click the subscribe button. Thank you for doing so. I love you. Let's get back to it.
The third type of luck would be luck from awareness. So your past experiences and skills help you spot opportunities that other people don't spot. And so an example of that would be I started my ghostwriting agency after I worked with Noah because I spotted that there were so many of these other ghostwriters, but no one was really serving these founders who wanted valuable content, not just viral content. And so that's kind of the lens that I split it up into. So that's luck from awareness. And then that fourth type of luck is luck from uniqueness, which is now you've built up yourself into someone who's valuable, has skill set, a unique skill set that when an opportunity occurs, people find you or they reach out to you because you have that skill set. And so Naval talks about this idea of like, let's say there's a lost treasure, deep down in the ocean and people discover it. Well, they need like a really specialized diver to go get that treasure. And so they reach out to you because you're that special diver. And so with this acquisition.com role, they were looking for somebody to help with short form content, so a social media strategist. And so then a friend of a friend reached out and connected us.
So when you're applying to this role, what was it that made them pull the trigger, or when you're saying that you're game for it, what sold them on you? Did you make another pitch deck? Or did they look at your content? What was it, if they've communicated that with you, that made them go with you?
I actually never asked what pulled the trigger, so I'll have to ask that. That's a good question.
Okay. We'll have to get
But
you
if
on
I were to
again so you
guess,
can yeah, go for it.
yeah, if I were to guess, it would be three things. Number one, I did create a pitch deck. So me and my pitch
Nice.
decks, right?
Yeah.
I created a pitch deck of like, if I were your head Instagram strategist, what would I do? What would I change? And so I listed, I think it was like 9 suggestions or 9 different like things we could change with examples. I think the second thing would be my existing track record. So I worked with BI, I've worked with Noah, I scaled a ghostwriting agency. Like I've been in the content space for 5 years. And so, yes, I'm 19, but I also have half a decade of experience in content.
That's
Um,
insane. That's awesome.
I think the third thing was we started on a paid test trial. And so they got to see my skill set and the results we got together as a test. And I think that's a great way for any agency or business owner trying to look like if they should hire somebody. Like I started with Noah on a test trial. Um, I start most of the contractors I use on test trials. Like I think that's just a great way. Like what Noah used to tell me is like, how can we test before we invest? So can we
Mm.
start on a free trial with a tool or with a teammate or with a project? How do we validate before we invest a bunch of time, energy, and resources into it?
So when you're doing these test projects for Hormozi or Noah, what does that look like? Is it like a certain amount of content, certain amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like you're on the team. We're going to give you one micro project out of a macro project. So, for example, one of the test projects was I was to research a famous person and put together a research doc for a YouTube video that we're going to do. And that doc had to be detailed, had to have a certain amount of things, and then if I did well, then it showed
You get more.
that I could do it. If not, yeah. If I did well, they got more. If not, see ya.
I love that. It's a lot like what Bezos says about like a two-way door, where it's easy to get out if you go in, so you don't have to have the big stakes around it. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
don't get where they want to go because they make the stakes bigger than they need to be. So then emotions also get involved, because when you hire someone and then you have to fire them, it's a completely different experience. As someone who has both hired and fired people myself, I've made that mistake. So I think that adopting the testing philosophy is definitely the way to go. So how did this testing period go with Hormozi? How did the first project go?
Went super well. They loved it. I loved it. I at the time I was in college and I was also running my ghostwriting agency. It was doing really well, and so like I was like, do I want to take this role? Do I continue doing what I'm doing? But I think it was that test trial where I was working with the team, where I was like, wow, these guys are gangsters. Like these guys are
Hmm.
awesome. And these are the type of people that I want to surround myself with. So I think the test trial was great for both ends. You know, it was kind of like a feeler for both of us, and I think it went really well.
They're one of the only, their whole team are the only people that I see that approach content how I personally think it should be approached, where they appreciate the level of nuance that goes into success across different platforms, and really being hyper specific to winning at each place they're even trying to play. What can you like? What have you learned that you didn't know before from being around that many gangsters, as you said it?
I would say two things really stood out to me or stand out to me about how we approach content. Number one is brand is about associations. And so we're very careful with who we collab with or who we do podcasts with or how we are perceived on social media because we should be. Like you only have one reputation and if, you know, trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. And so like it's once it's gone, like it's very very hard to make up for it. And so we're just very careful about the associations that people make with our brand. Um, Number two, I'd say is data-driven growth, and this is something that I worked with Noah on, and that he kind of unlocked that for me. But I think it got reinforced here at acquisition. Is you know we're a content team, and so we treat content like a professional. And so what do professionals do? Like if you're an NBA player, what do? They track metrics. They track the number of shots you take, the number of shots you make, you know, your rate, like all these like different things that most normal basketball players won't even think of. They'll just show up in an empty gym, shoot around, call it a day, right? And so I think it's the professionals approach that really stood out to me.
100%. Yeah, and it's obviously every podcast I've ever listened to where Hormozi talks about content, he echoes that and he underlines the importance of it. So obviously a ton of that went into making the record-breaking book launch the success that it was. Can you walk me through that whole project? How long did you guys work on that? How did that how was that whole experience? I'm almost I think I saw you on the private jet or whatever going to the event. I think I saw you guys prepping for that. That was awesome. So tell me about the whole book launch thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a huge marathon slash sprint for the entire team. So I do want to give huge kudos to everyone. Like,
Of
this was not a
course.
one person thing. Like, this
No, no,
was
no,
the
obviously.
entire
Yes, of
team.
course.
Um, Alex has been working on the book for over 2 years, and so I think that broke my frame on like playing in long games. You know, like he's been working on these three book series for the past 6 years, and so
That's insane.
like most people operate in days, he operates in decades, and I think like it's that's a quippy soundbite to say, but if you actually do that, like it's such a hard thing to do, but also one of the fastest way to get ahead is to operate in decades. So that's number one. I'd say, you know, I've been part of several book launches now, including my own, and I
Hmm.
think if I had to boil down a successful launch of really anything, it would be intention. I think the most successful launches that I'm aware of, the people who are a part of it spend a disproportionate amount of time on the preparation for that launch. And so, for example, Noah Kagan spent 18 months before his book was released prepping for the marketing of it, going on podcasts, prepping the emails, putting together a launch team, like writing the emails, doing the social media posts, testing the concepts, validating things. Like 18 months before a book is launched, like it takes most people 18 years to or 18 months to write a book. Like he
Hmm.
just spent 18 months on the marketing itself. Like that's the amount of preparation that most people don't think about. For the Money Models launch, I think I would say three things were key, and I was actually jamming on it with another teammate. I would say number one is brand. I think the fact that Alex has given away so much over the years, like it's cliche, but he has so much goodwill. And so when he does make an ask, it's like you're not really selling, you're just offering an opportunity to go deeper in the relationship with Alex. And so that was number one. Um, Number two would be the team. I think, you know, Alex wanted to launch the book a year ago, but we just didn't have the team for it. And this was before I was a part of the team. But I can confidently say like this launch would not have been possible without the people around it. And so like a lot of people talk about process and checklists and SOPs, but if you have A plus talent who can think on the fly, who can spot problems before they become problems, like right, wisdom is prevention, you make the launch so much easier. Um, and then I would say third is make an offer so good that other people feel stupid saying no, as Alex would
Mhm.
say. The
Irresistible.
offers was like the offer was incredible. Like it was stupid not to do it. I mean, if you have you don't have
Mhm.
the money, no worries. But like if you did have the means and your goal was to grow your business, like what are you
You're gonna
doing,
do
you
it.
know? And so
Yeah.
those three things I'd say, in my opinion, played a big role in the launch.
Yeah, and obviously it worked, broke the records, all that stuff. I bought 15 copies. I bought the 15 copy deal, so I have a ton of books coming my way. And it was exactly that, where and and Hermosi and like Alex says all this stuff too, right? When you make your free content better than most stuff people hide behind a paywall, naturally they're wondering how good is this stuff going to be that I'm paying for, right? So it just makes sense. And the level of time and detail that went into these books, you can feel it when you read it. And I think what Alex nailed so well there with his book, and I'm excited to read your book too. I'm going to order it after this so I can dive into it, because I'm sure you did the same sort of thing. But when most people have this belief that books are full of fluff and wasted time and pages, Alex has had none of that. And I think that also went a very long way, where the two books before were very actionable, very specific. You could tell that he had spent the years on it to pull out what was needed versus what wasn't. And obviously he had extra material that he put into that extra book that he mentioned at the end of it there. But yeah, just you can feel it and you can't fake it. And I think a lot of people try to fake their way to like guru status. And it becomes really easy. You don't have to be a guru when you're just obsessed with doing the thing, which obviously all of you guys are. Which the question that I had off of that is there a common trait that you notice amongst all of the team at acquisition.com? Like if I challenged you with that question, could you think of one thing you guys all have in common?
Competitive greatness. I
Okay.
think we're
Define that for
all
me.
we all want to do our best. And so when you have a team of people who won't stop at just okay, but genuinely want to do the like when we play pickleball, like it gets competitive, like because that's who we are. When we
Yeah, you want
launch
to
a
win.
book, like we're competitive. When I was helping on the sales support team, like we all wanted to make the most dials and make the most sales. Like we stayed all night, like we were 17 hours straight of just dialing because that's who we are. And I think like there's other attributes, but number one is like we're just
That's a tough one.
competitively great.
And if you're like Jay, it's so important to get around people like that, because if you're not around people like that, people see you as a weirdo and people will pull you down. They try to say like, calm down. I had that my whole life. A lot of my friends growing up, great people, awesome, not like me. And so I was
Mm,
viewed as the crazy kid, doing too
yeah,
much, calm down, slow down. Why are you so competitive? I can't tell you how many times I heard all that crap. And that's fine if you want the life that comes with it. But if you want to do great things like what you guys are doing at acquisition.com and what Jay's doing at fucking 19, like I still can't get over that. Where you've written a book, worked for all these people, doing all this stuff. It's just because you love the process and you want to win regardless of what it is. When you become obsessed with winning, you really don't stop, because you when you become obsessed with winning, you just do the things required to win. And so even when you lose, you don't see it as a loss. You see it as an opportunity to acquire more information or more experience. And then you move forward and you get better. It's difficult to communicate that to people, but if you feel like you have that in you, as soon as humanly possible, get in an environment where there's so much more of that. When you were a kid, I'm assuming most of your friends weren't like this, were they? Like, was there other people in your school that were listening to motivational stuff at 14?
I would say they were competitive, but in different domains. I think like a lot of people were obsessed with video games or with the sports, basketball, soccer,
Yeah.
baseball. I just started becoming obsessed with more old man domain of writing and business, right? So yeah, just different domains.
I love that you went down the writing route, because I do think that when you learn writing, it opens up every other form of content, because I feel like it teaches you how to speak for consumption. It teaches you how to be very deliberate and intentional with every bit of thing that you're doing. And I don't think there's a better skill to learn than that, even though everyone's saying, oh, AI is going to take over writing and all of this stuff. If someone was to learn writing today, and I know that you said that you gave the formula that you go through to learn, where do you think the best place is to source writing inspiration? Like, do you still think it's Twitter? Do you think it's blogs? Do you think it's newsletters?
If I were just starting out, I would read books.
Books.
I
Okay.
think,
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
I think books, like, it follows the Lindy effect, which is the longer something has been around, the more likely it'll stay around. And
Okay.
so, like, if you want wisdom and you want to understand the craft of writing, like, go to where the source is. Like, all the tweets and stuff, it's just people reading books, talking about it. So just read the
True.
book. Um, so yeah.
That is true. I found that when I was creating content as well, that all of the best content was stuff that I pulled from a book, because that degree of separation, it's just enough friction where most of the people who aren't serious, they won't do it. And life is just like a funnel. And when you get lower, like, you can force your way to the lower end of the funnel by just doing stuff that's harder, right? If you, just like you said, the best information is going to be where the least amount of people are going to spend the time to actually put in the reps to get it and to understand it. So I totally advocate that. I think reading is a massive thing. Do you have any books that come to mind that have been the most impactful on your journey? If I had to hit you with your top 5 books, is that possible for you? I know you're a big
I,
reader, so that might be hard, but do your best.
yeah. I would say in no particular order. We'll just go from top off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Number one for writing, the boron letters helped me a lot.
Yep.
Um, in school, you were taught to like don't use me or you, like write in the third person or whatever, write in 5 paragraph chunks, and like that just totally broke my frame because it was a legendary copywriter went to prison writing letters to his son, and like he was like, "Dear Bond, today we're going to talk about blah blah blah." And why are we talking about this, you may ask? Well, because we're going to do this. But first we need to talk about this. It's a very playful style of writing, very conversational, and that unlocked my frame because I thought writing had to be boring. I thought it had to be academic. So that'd be one. I think Millionaire Fastlane also broke my frame. It's like this idea of like, oh, if you put $1,000 in the S&P and you save for 60 years, then you'll be a millionaire. But then you'll be 85 and you can't do anything with it. So it's like it broke my frame of like try to make money early on your life, not because you want money or because it's, you're going to be evil, but because money is a tool for a better life. And so it makes sense to try and make it early. So that was one or two. Um, I would say reading Kobe Bryant's biography. I
Mm,
think it's called Showboat. That
okay.
was great because it gave me permission to lean into obsession. Kobe was obviously a very obsessed person, and I think in society we're, as you were saying, we're kind of shunned for wanting more, for being ambitious, and I think it gave me permission to be like, it's okay to be slightly different. Like if you have different goals, then you have to take different actions. So by definition, you'll be different than most people, and that's okay. I'd say we'll stop there. I think those are 3 books that are good for everybody.
Three's great. No, I definitely agree with that, and think getting opening up that door for yourself of I haven't read Kobe's book, but different things gave me that same kind of freedom to pursue the fact that I just was the way that I was, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It is, and the sooner that you embrace the way that you are, the more that synchronicities start happening, the more that open doors start opening, the more opportunities you get, the more the right people stick around, and the more the wrong people leave. So it just makes things a lot more clear. I want to get back to content in particular, because obviously that's one of your zone of genius. And so many people are doing content, and a lot of people are even doing content because of Hormozi. Like, I think he really ushered in a new wave of creators. In fact, that people were even calling it like the Hormozi subtitles and whatnot. Like, he really has changed the whole approach to content for people who are business focused. And I know why he did it, and he's talked about that at length. But where do you think most people go wrong, and where are their blind spots? Because I deal with people every single day where they tell me about they're making content, and they're telling me about their goals, and they're like, "This is a good piece of content. Like, why isn't it getting views?" What do you see typically when people ask you those kinds of questions?
I would say two things. Most people don't know why. Like, if I'm the consumer and you make a piece of content, let's say you think it's really good, but let's say it's not. Why is there a fundamental difference between our perspectives? It would be one, the value of that piece of content isn't great, and we could define value. And then two, you don't have proof that what you're saying works, which makes me have those two questions. Why am I listening and why you? If we chunk up value to like what is the definition of value, to me in a piece of content, value is simply you give more than I got for paying attention to it, right? I'm paying attention. I'm
Mm-hmm.
paying my time to consume this. And so let's say you start a YouTube video with, "What's up, guys? It's your boy Jay. Yesterday I was doing blah, 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 and today we're going to do this, and then I'm going to talk about this, and you're going to get this." Like, you just wasted my time. The time to value has been now too long. I'm clicking off. Whereas if you started with, maybe the title was 10 Brutally Honest Truths for Young Men. You start the video. Today we're going to talk about 10 brutally honest truths for young men. You know, I'm 19 and I've done X, Y, and Z, and today I'm going to tell you 10 truths. That is very clear. What's the promise? What's the proof? And now it's super clear why you should continue listening. And I think that's what most people miss, is they either talk about something that they really shouldn't be talking about, or they don't know what they're talking about. It's murky.
It's the same sort of thing that you went through to get the opportunities that you wanted. You did the thinking for people, right? If you're
Right.
struggling with your content and you're listening to this, have you thought really and honestly about your audience? Most of the time when I see people, it's like clearly they haven't asked the question, would you watch this? And so many times when I watch people's content, I'm like, dude, you wouldn't watch this. And you're
Yeah.
wondering why people won't, like come on here. And I had the same sort of things. And I think that why it's great that you've been doing content for so long and I've been doing content for so long is that you can go back and look at our old content and see that it sucked. Right? Like you can see that like it wasn't good. You could see that we weren't giving an equitable exchange for what we wanted. And so then that had to change for that to happen. And the thing that I love that you said was that we can define value. And I knew what you meant by that is that it can come in so many different ways, shapes, and forms, but it needs to come in some way. Right? Like I think that's where a lot of people get lost is they'll hear me or you say, "Oh, is your content valuable?" There's not one definition for valuable. It can come in so many different ways. That's why attractive women grow, right? Because that's value to some people. That's why funny people can grow. Figuring out what your value is and doubling down on that's one of the most important things. And Jay, you made a really good point there where you said that if you're trying to provide value you can't actually give, that's going to come through really, really quickly. And I think that Hormozi is a great example of the opposite. He had done so much more than even what he was saying, and I love the frame that he always gave was, "I'm not saying to do this. I'm saying what worked for me." And you can really only do that if you've done it. So like, we're definitely a recurring theme here because none of this stuff is actually that complicated. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean it's two things. Are you the type of person that you would follow? And then what the heck do I mean? If you can nail those two questions, I think your content will
The
be
content's
miles ahead of
doing it so
everyone
much
else.
better. Yeah, and another thing that I love to do go through it is for especially this is for short form especially, but I always try to remove as much as possible while maintaining the point. Right? I think a lot of times people leave in way too much where they could have gotten the same sort of value for 20% of the clip, and just like you said, the ratio is off from value towards the time that they're paying for it. And that's one very easy way where if you listen to this, I think a lot of people can get more value onto their content is just by cutting it down and saving people some time. So obviously you've been around Alex and Layla. Is there something specifically with your time with Alex? I guess a better way of saying is what's the biggest takeaway that you've taken from working with Alex directly?
I think the biggest thing is the power of focus, which, whoa, it's kind of cliche, and he talks about it all the time, but like, I was in a film session, and we were talking about focus, and we were like, how do you actually like focus? Because, that's hard to do. And he's like, anytime I have an idea, I write it down in a notes app, and then I put it away. I don't think about it. And then I'll come back a week later and I'll revisit it. And 90% of the time, I realize it's a bad idea. So that eliminates a lot of distractions. Um, if it's still interesting, he'll look at it, he'll put it away, and he'll come back to it again later. And he said on this, he calls it his big ideas list. On this big ideas list, in the past 18 months, he's only executed on 3 of those. And I think that's just one of the greatest demonstrations of focus because, like, a lot of people say, oh, you got to focus, and focus means saying no, and like all these things, but like, one of the sad parts about life is you can only do a few things really well. And so once you have one of those things, it becomes so painful to continue saying no to increasingly shiny opportunities. And I think the bigger you get, the harder it is to say no, which makes it even more important. And I think from the past 18 months to see the amount of progress he's made and the amount of progress I've made, it's become abundantly clear that once you have your North Star and you reverse engineer the steps, anything that isn't those steps is a distraction. And if people can internalize that, you get so much further ahead.
So focus isn't about just saying no in general. It's about having something only worth saying yes to that just blocks out all the noise. It makes everything else obvious that you shouldn't do that. I think a lot of people but a lot of people fall into the trap of not doing anything because they don't have that clarity. How can someone who's not gotten to where you are or where Alex is start from zero and figuring out what's worth focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, the way I like to explain it is like if you have a North Star, even if you're looking through a telescope, it's still kind of vague. You don't know the exact like the specific details. And so it's like it's more like pick a direction and start moving because clarity comes from action, not the other way around. And so if you have a general sense of where you should go, start moving and as Rumi the poet says, like as you walk the way appears. And so like if you don't have any idea, it's like pick a direction and go, experiment
Just
with
go.
things, try things, fail, learn what you like, or learn what you don't like, and it'll slowly iterate from there. Um, that's probably what I'd say.
So for Alex, Alex is one side of the business, and he's obviously the one that we see more publicly typically. But Layla is such an important component and such a complementary piece to acquisition.com and Alex. And I love seeing her content because I think that I struggle the most in the areas where she is so fantastic. Like I would say that I'm closer to the Alex side, nowhere near as good at the things that he does. But from Layla, what's the biggest lesson that you've taken away from her?
I would say feedback is a gift. I think a lot of CEOs talk about how they prioritize their people or how they're people first or a family, but I think Layla actually demonstrates that. And so after every quarter, she'll put out a survey, a full team survey, asking for feedback on the company's doing, how she could do better. And then she actually addresses every single one of those pieces of feedback.
Wow.
And our company's, about 100 people. Like that is a lot of time. It's probably like a week or two of just feedback, and implementation. And, most CEOs aren't willing to do that, aren't willing, like they'll either maybe do half of that and then not take any feedback and just kind of let it sit there. But like she addresses every single one of those pieces, even if it's like, hey, we want Fairlife instead of these protein shakes. Like, yeah, small things like that. It's like because she cares. And I think when people realize that feedback is not a call out, it's a call up, I think a lot of people be better off.
That's remarkable. That shows obviously that she does care, and you can't fake that. And I think it also shows a lot of confidence. I think most people don't ask for feedback because they don't have the confidence to take it. So I think that also opens up a massive unlock for you if you can get to that place. And where in your life, where in your business, where in your content are you not asking for feedback? I think a lot of people could find their own content problems or the solutions to them from just asking for honest feedback. And if they haven't, it's because they know they're not going to get good feedback. But bad feedback is typically the fastest route towards better performance. So that's awesome to hear. Do they both work as hard as it seems like from the outside?
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. That's awesome. Yeah, because obviously every post you hear is like, all I do is I work and I work out. And so you would say that is factual.
Yes.
That's awesome. Do you ever work out with Alex?
I have not yet. He has worked out less because of the launch craziness,
Of course.
but maybe someday soon.
So for the launch, obviously you were a big part of that, and so much work went into it. What I want to speak to is just I want to get some more content game for people for who are watching this. You guys test like crazy. You guys film so many different variations for different things, and you're constantly testing. What does your testing process look like? How do you validate that a test is working or it's not? Can you share any of those details?
Um, I'll say two tests that I think are pretty low lift that people can try now. Uh, Number one is treat Twitter like a idea playground. So Alex tweets, and some do better, some don't do well, and then we take the better ones and then we distribute it everywhere else. And I think that simple, like it sounds so simple, but common sense isn't always common practice, and like doing that will help your content do better. Number two is if it's a reel, testing it on trial reels.
Yeah,
Um,
huge.
Huge, yeah. Test trial reels with different hooks and different visual hooks and text hooks and verbal hooks, all three of those hooks, and then ones that do better, post that one. The ones that don't do that.
Can we break down the anatomy of a well-structured piece of content? Because I think you and I are at the level of aptitude where you can say a word and I know the exact context that you're referring to it. I can picture it in my mind and I can think about how it would work in my flow. But I think a lot of people, they get so fixated on these words, they get lost in that. They become a trap. I know hook is one of the biggest one where people think the hooks are the solution to all of their problems. Can you break down different parts of a well-structured post and how you see it?
Yeah. I mean, I said punch, slide, linger earlier today. Alex
Yeah.
says hook, retain, reward.
Okay.
Um, Fundamentally, you need something that stops people's attention. And so, if you're really interested in getting good at content, I would pay attention. I would study psychology, what actually captures people's attention. What I said is we have verbal hook, text hook, visual hook. Verbal hook would be business owners. It's a call out. Like if I said your name in a loud party, it's the cocktail party
Yeah.
effect. If I said Ben, like you pay attention. So Alex often says business owners because that's who he's talking to. That's a verbal hook. You have text hook, which is simply the caption, and so adding just like this almost a summary of what the video is about on the reel will significantly help that boost in performance. Because if you're scrolling someone's feed, you don't know what the video is about. So having the hook there is like, oh, this video is about business, or this video is about marketing, whatever. You actually know what the topic's about. And then visual hook, big things, colorful things, moving things, like, you know, things we got, watch a baby crawling across the floor. What captures its attention? Loud noises, moving things, and big things, bright things, right? And so just adding that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think people overcomplicate hooks a lot. I think that was a great way that you broke it down. Really, it's about using the tools that you have at your disposal to get the outcome that you want. And really, an effective hook is one that works. And so you have a few different tools at your disposal. Why not use them the best that you can? And it really comes down to understanding who you want to watch this video. The deeper that level of understanding is, the more concentrated the message is going to be, the harder it's going to hit, the more people are going to stay, the better the data will be, the farther the video will go. That's pretty well it in a nutshell. That's how I always think about it. I try to reverse engineer it. And obviously Jay and your whole team is doing the exact same thing. So I want to hear more about your book, man. So tell me, why write a book? You don't hear too many 19-year-olds writing books. Tell me about that whole thing. How long did it take you? And then what effort did you put into the launch for that?
Yeah, so the book is called You Can Just Do Things. And the reason I wrote it is because, if I'm being completely honest, I couldn't not write it. Every night
Love
before
that.
bed, it was the first thing I was thinking about. Like, it consumed all of my non-working hours were spent on that book. Um, and so I didn't know what it meant to write a book. I've read books. I just like the process of writing a book seemed so mysterious and vague. And so rather than trying to write a book, I just decided to start writing. And so opened a blank Google Doc and I just jotted down notes, random thoughts, quotes, stories, things that, as I was growing up, like things that captured my attention. And eventually that turned into the rough outline of the book and then turned into the manuscript and turned into the actual book. And we can dive into the writing process of the actual book if you want.
I would love
But
to.
yeah, it took about a year and a half in total.
Dang.
And then I only spent 2 months on the launch, and it was intentional because I was graduating college, or not full.
Okay.
I was not graduating college. I was about to drop out of college. So I was going to leave
Mm.
college. And I wanted a lot of my peers who didn't know how to create opportunities without waiting for permission. They didn't know about the permissionless approach. I wanted them to read the book. So I wanted to get it out before we all left and I moved across the country. So that's why there was like a kind of a deadline for me. In hindsight, if I had more time, I would have spent, as Noah did, much more time on the marketing. But for the timing reasons, went out in April. And yeah, it's been great so far. I think I've so many awesome, like I get DMs and like comments from people like, "Oh, I tried this method and like it changed my life. Like I got an internship here." And it was like it's a very rewarding feeling.
And so, where can people find the book? It's on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Is there anything that you wish you included in that book that you didn't?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'll say this. So when I first started writing the book, it was structured in three parts: creating the opportunity, what do you do once you have the opportunity, and then exiting the opportunity. I realized that that was tackling too many problems at once. And just like in a piece of content, like you want to solve one specific problem. And so you can just do things is about creating that opportunity. How do you land an internship, or how do you, get on a basketball team, or how do you work with your favorite entrepreneurs or companies? It was like about that idea. And then a teaser, book two is about now that you have this opportunity, well, how do you maximize it? How do you make the most out of it? How do you stand out when everyone else is so good? And so,
That's what you're working on now. Have you started writing
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Amazing. How far into that are we?
I've got the outline, and I've got, say, 65% of the material, like the stories and the note cards. I have a note card system. I like anything like quotes or stories, I'll jot it down on a note card. And then, so yeah, I'm about 65% of the way with
That one.
just the structure.
Cool. I've always wanted to write a book. I've always put it off because it is a very intimidating thing. Because I don't know. For me, I've started a book in my notes probably a dozen times over the course of my life, and I just never know where to start and end. And I struggle with the elimination start part of it. Of should I include this? Should I not? How did
Mm.
you make those decisions when you were working on yours?
Yeah, I mean, the approach I used was get it out before you optimize it. And so
Okay.
I just any thought, get it out. And the I think I had like 250 pages of material, and then I was like, well, I wanted to write a short book because people my age don't really read it. So I was like, let me make like 100, I think the book ended up being 148 pages. Don't quote me on that, but definitely wanted to be a shorter read, like quick, like get what you need and go actually take action. Like I don't want you to sit through a 500-page book. Like, there's no
Totally.
reason. So
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So you should definitely pick that up if you're watching this. I'll link it down below. A few more things before I let you go on content in particular. Where do you feel is some of the most underappreciated opportunities on social right now? Like, where do you think not enough people are spending the time that's warranted on
like platforms.
platforms? I obviously we talked about trial reels, but anything like from a strategy perspective, feature perspective, those kinds of things.
I mean, I can name platforms, but like if you're watching this from a year from now, like it's not really gonna matter. Like trial rules may
True.
not even be a thing. So I think like fundamentally study what works, test and invest, and then double down on what works. Like that is the fundamentals of organic social content.
100%. But people really struggle with, okay, so how do I study? Could you break down how you would study if you were going in to help someone?
Yeah, consume, collect, create. Scroll, pay attention to what captures your attention, and then look at what actually captured your attention. Like when you're scrolling, Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or YouTube, it's like something stood out to you.
Yes.
Why did your thumb stop? Like, what was it? And if you pay attention to that enough times, you start to see a pattern, and then
You
you
learn
can,
things
yeah. I mean, it's like
all the time.
if you want to be a good basketball player and you watch other basketball players, like naturally you're like you resonate with one basketball player over another. It's like, okay, well, why? And then it's like, well,
Hmm.
maybe it's the way he plays. Okay, can I play like that? It's like, oh, he does this move. Okay, he does this footwork. Okay, it's like then you just kind of that's how you learn.
Do it.
It's mimicry.
Totally. Yeah, people are always so mystified by that, but it is that simple. And it's something that I did so early on, and I never really stopped doing it. I consider myself a student of content before I am a consumer of content. And I'm even like that when other people are consuming. When my girlfriend's around me and she picks a video, she gets so mad. I'll ask her like 40 questions as to why. And then I break down, okay, so what's the relationship that you have with these people? Like, why do you feel so invested? Like what about them
Yeah.
made you feel like this was worth their time? And the craziest stuff is that every time I've done that, as much as people are frustrated by it in the moment, it always leads to crazy revelations as to how impressionable people are and how impactful content can be. I'm always blown away because with my girlfriend, we did it for one of her favorite vloggers that she'd been watching for a long time. And I got to the end of it and I was like, you do realize you shaped your entire life around this girl and her family, right? And she's like, what do you mean? And then I run through the list. And I was like, that's the kind of power that you have here when you get good at this stuff. And so as long as you're doing the right things and trying to positively impact people, the stuff that Jay is talking about here is so worth learning. But the most important thing is to shift from being a consumer to a student. And it does take that conscious choice because these platforms are so damn good. You can get sucked into a lull of consumption. So if you don't have some sort of buffer. For me, it's like I use my notes app all the time where whenever I get that, okay, I'll write it out. But having something where you can take thought or discovery and actually put it towards something is really, really helpful. I also built, 'cause YouTube's my main platform, so I would always do like look boards for titles and thumbnails, like inspiration. I would copy and paste the picture, put it on a look board. People do that for copy. There's a guy who wrote the book Copywriting something. What's his name again? I'll link it in the show notes, but he has this whole database of just good copy, and you can go access it anytime. I think that's a really good tool. Is just creating a lookbook of yourself of the things that you want to do. But that's it, man. I think the thing that I've loved the most about this conversation, Jay, apart from the fact that your story is super, super inspiring, is that you're so matter of fact about this stuff because it is that simple if you figure out what you want to do. That North Star that you've mentioned a bunch of times is the most important part. So figuring that out is going to solve most of your problems. So for what you got right now, obviously the North Star is growing your brand, growing acquisition. Have you thought about what's next? I'm sure you're thinking day by day, but let's say like a year from now, what does success look like to you?
A year from now, success to me looks like I am the type of person capable of mass value creation, both in content and in business.
Okay, I like that. Where do you feel is your most underdeveloped areas in both of those?
I think in content, it is speaking in front of a camera, DTC, and also editing.
Mm,
In business, I think I've been pretty narrowly focused on online business stuff, obviously for the past 5 years. So learning
totally.
about all the other types of businesses, brick and mortar, SaaS, like all this other stuff. I think those are the areas. Yeah.
Love it, man. Okay, well, I don't have too much left here. Where's the best place for people to follow you, to connect with you and your story and everything you're working on?
Yeah, I'm at J Yang Inspires on pretty much every social platform, and best way to read my stuff is you can just do things on Amazon.
Love that. That'll be linked. Everything that Jay's mentioned will be in the description box of this if you're on YouTube, the show notes if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Jay, I appreciate you, man. I'm super excited to see everything that you do. I'll be keeping an eye on everything you're doing in acquisition and all your stuff. And I'm excited to read your second book after I read your first. We'll have to get you back on when that one launches so we can talk about how to maximize the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Ben. This was awesome.
Of course, man. We'll run it back again soon. Appreciate you.